Hey, Shane,
Yes, Spence?
have you seen Fast 5?
No.
Have you seen Fast and Furious 6?
Also no.
Have you seen Furious 7? I mean...
No.
Well... You have now.
Yes, I have indeed. I have now seen the middle chunk
Of the saga.
of the saga.
In my opinion, the best chunk of the saga.
I would agree with that. As far as what I have seen, in honor of this very momentous occasion, I have pulled out. We went to the store. We pulled out all the stops. I got myself a Corona, and I'm about to pop this bad boy open.
He's going to do it.
He's got a lime too. Hold on.
Because he's not a savage. He cut the lime a little too thick, and now he can't get it in a bottle. This is the best day. I wish we had video.
I did too. Oh, we should have done video for this, but oh well. I've got a Corona in hand. To family. Honestly, also to actually, in a real way, to Paul Walker, to his memory, to his family. A wonderful actor, lost too soon, legitimately very sad. And we can talk about his send off once we get to
we're gonna talk about it pretty in depth. I was still in high school when it happened. So it was very, very like close to home and personal stuff too, and it was a big deal. I still desperately miss him.
To Paul Walker. Honestly, not bad.
Really? Is it good?
I think the lime does a lot for sure.
Well, look, dude.
Oh no! Am I a Corona drinker now?
You're one of the family, dude.
Part of the family.
Part of the family.
Where is he? Dom, I need you. A part of the family.
Okay.
Okay.
But in serious now, we're gonna just start at the first one of these movies we watched, which is Fast 5. And I'm gonna say, just up front, outright, unironically, one of my all-time favorite movies, period. And I understand how that sounds, but listen, I have a film degree, so I know what I'm talking about.
Right.
So I am correct in saying that it's amazing. And so my first question for you, Shane, going into it, you've heard me talk about this specific one for years. How did it live up to me raving about it constantly?
Not only did you rave about it, I feel like many people who are into this franchise, who are fans of this franchise, have talked about their love and appreciation of Fast 5. So I was going in with, I was going in with reserved expectations in terms of like you describing it as literally one of your favorite movies.
You didn't want to go in giving it too
taste.
much. I have great taste.
No,
Fuck you.
I'm just kidding. No, because it's still like in my film douche brain, it's still a Fast and Fast.
It's one of those dumb car movies.
So it's one of those dumb car movies. It is legitimately a very good movie. And I keep putting it in those exact terms, or it is like legitimately a good movie. Spencer's always like, why do you say it like that? And I was like, because when you go through the first four, they're like varying levels of like not great to pretty good. And then like Fast 5 comes out of freaking nowhere and is like just a good movie. Like it is like solid left, right, and center, like an actually good, well-made movie.
It's like a movie.
It's like a real movie.
No, and there's a lot of reasons for that, which we will get into. But I think the number one reason for why the jump in quality is ridiculous between Fast and Furious and Fast 5 is because they finally commit to something.
Yeah.
They commit to this idea of family,
yeah,
which is like the driving force from here forward hard stop. Like before, it was always kind of about like the relationships and like the crew Dom had and how close they were. But now it like triples down on it in a way that they, you know, sometimes you get like cameo tired.
Yeah.
You don't in this movie.
Yeah.
They bring back the most random out there, like guy showed up for one bit part in Fast and Furious 2 or Too Fast, Too Furious. And like, he's back as a character in these movies. They commit to the people who are in them. They commit to the premise of family, and they commit so hard to the core cast.
Right.
They bring back everyone. They bring back Tyrese. They bring back Gal Gadot. They bring back Luda. They bring back everybody.
Yeah.
And it becomes this like ensemble movie.
Yeah.
This ensemble heist film. You know, there's literally it's a heist movie.
Yeah.
There's
100%.
Get the team together.
Yeah.
They try and fail. They make plans. They have to adjust. They have to improvise. We see kind of how the plan is supposed to go.
Yeah.
And then we get to watch what really happens.
Yeah.
It's a heist movie.
Yeah.
With cars.
With cars. And Vin Diesel.
Yeah, but I also think, like, to this movie's credit, the script is better. You know what I mean?
100%.
It's consistently funny. There's not like,
Yeah.
I mean, there's stuff that doesn't land. For the most part, the jokes all land really well, and the heart is really good. You know, with like, and just spoilers up front, we're just talking about these loose. Like, this introduces the literal family of Brian and Mia having a kid.
Right.
And so then there's that, I think it's a really touching scene with the funniest line delivery in maybe the series when he's like, I remember everything about my father.
I remember everything about my father.
But that scene is really touching where it just like kind of peels back the lives of them, and that they're like people. Again, the joke you made last time was like, they're like real people with real problems. But like, you buy into it so hard in this movie.
Yeah. No, it's like I said, it is surprisingly like, look, these movies were never lacking in sincerity, but this is the first one where I feel like they kind of actually cash that check.
Big
where
time.
it's like in so many in several of the other ones where it's like they have these big emotions, but it's like it just doesn't fully work in the rest of in some of the other ones. Like, I think it works in the first one. I think that sincerity works in the first one. I think it isn't quite there in the second one. I think it's a little bit more winking, a little bit more fun, and a little bit more silly.
I don't even know if I'd go wing it. I would just say it's more on the spectacle and the story, like we talked about last time. The first one's just Point Break, so the second one is kind of just another action buddy cop kind of thing, whatever.
The third one, I think it is trying and like failing to an extent because the main character and his love interests are so boring. Like it just doesn't have the same juice. And then the fourth one, they finally bring all of the interesting characters back, and they bring back. It's like the fourth one feels almost like a setup. You know what I mean? Like in television, we always talk about like, you know, oh, this feels like a setup episode when they're preparing for a big new arc or a big new, you know, big spectacle thing to happen in the next episode. 4 feels very much like a setup for 5, 6, and 7.
They finally put like Brian being on the fence about which side of the law he wants to be.
Right.
You know, they put that to bed.
Right.
They commit to them healing this relationship that was broken in the other one and sending us on a journey. You know what I mean? Ending with that bit of a cliffhanger of like, oh, we're breaking him out of prison.
Right.
Which is, again, in 5, the funniest thing about 5. One, that Perd Hapley from Parks and Rec is one of the newscasters, but the other one,
the newscast that we see is You Heard with Perd.
Yeah, exactly. It's secretly this all takes place in Pawnee, Indiana. I'm here for it. Apparently, everything is. No, you're good. But that line in there that's so funny is right. We see the bus crash, which is where we leave Dom. We see how they get him out, and it rolls like 10 times.
Yeah.
And then on the newscast, they're like, remarkably, no one was injured, and it's like
Only
no one was
man
injured.
Missing.
I feel like all of them should be dead.
Should be if they're not dead, they're paralyzed.
And they're never going to be the same.
Yes, no kidding.
Okay, but we go from there and then like we jump into this movie's setting, which is Rio.
Yeah.
How does that, this is the first time we've kind of gone since Tokyo Drift, right? With our main cast, it's the first time we've gone somewhere like for a whole movie. You know, because 4, there's a bit in the DR, but this is like where we jump into full blown.
Does Miami count as a different location?
Miami counts. I should say like out of America.
Right.
You know, because there's times they go to Mexico for a little bit, but they come back.
Yeah.
But this is the first time we're like spending an entire movie in a place and like piggybacking on the environment, because there's a really good chase scene in this movie where they're jumping on roofs and like they have to split up. They're getting in fist fights. They're getting in shootouts. And it's like a good thing where there's like 3 parties involved and all of them are chasing all of them.
Yeah.
And it's like a really cool thing. But yeah, it's like that. How do you feel about, because this is kind of the beginning of their like globe-trotting nature that they kind of turn into. I mean, this one does. 6 takes place in London and then Spain.
Yeah, I think it doesn't. I don't really feel the change until 7, and we'll talk about it in 7. Where it's like I wouldn't describe it as like globe-trotting until 7. Yes. I mean, like you said, like we have been in, you know, like the first one's in LA, the next one's in Miami, the third one is in Tokyo, the fourth one's back in LA and a little bit in Mexico and DR, right?
Yeah,
okay.
The DR.
And then we've got this one, which is firmly set in Rio. It kind of feels natural. It doesn't really feel like a departure in any major way for me until we get to 7, which we'll talk about.
Okay, well then I think now is the time to kind of talk about. To me, this movie also signals a bit of an end of an era for newcomer to the series, Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, where his introduction in this movie is like amazing, right? He gets off the plane already sweating, already speaking
snarling,
he's snarling, speaking in exclusively catchphrases,
just one-liners and catchphrases abound.
And they use their one PG-13 F-bomb to introduce his character, right? Like as Brian calls him, he's Old Testament, he's Wrath of God, blood and bullets, you know what I mean?
That is such a great description. I love that
especially for this one where he's kind of this like unrelenting force who takes things as far as he has to.
It's very fitting for the character that they introduce.
No, absolutely. And like, he buys into the world better than any newcomer, I think, for this movie.
Yeah.
Where he comes in and he's giving the same level of intensity that Vin is giving.
Right.
Like to the point when they square off, you're like, God, is the earth shaking? Oh no. Like,
and it's literally shaking.
And so I think him coming into these movies, did you like him? Did you think he came around? Did you enjoy the character, or were you like on their side where you didn't like him?
I liked the character. I am looking at him. I'm looking at this character from my 2022 perspective, because The Rock has, and I know this will come into play in later.
As I said, you
movies.
can kind of chart his progression through these.
And so, like, to see The Rock in a not, like 50-50 comedy action performance and not be like winking the entire time. Like, I do actually appreciate that he is like fully given himself. This feels very much like late 90s, early 2000s Rock, where it's like, it's him still kind of in his like wrestling.
That was what I was going to compare it to, right? There's the intensity and the like, the level of bought in you are for the WWE. Dude, is him in this.
That is such a good analog, I think, is like the WWE for these movies in a lot of ways. Just because, like, look, like, we all know it's fake. But they treat it like it's freaking Shakespeare.
They do,
These performers are putting their bodies and their like emotions on the line and treating it like it's Shakespeare, and they are like putting their entire heart and soul into these performers, or in performances in these characters, and that feels like a very natural extension to then bring in somebody like The Rock, somebody who's famous for his wrestling persona, like one of the most famous wrestlers of all time. And I know we will be bringing more wrestlers in the future. Spoiler alert. So it's like, I really like, I love The Rock's character in this one because it feels different. It doesn't feel like the same old Rock. It doesn't feel like Dwayne The Rock Johnson. It feels like
Luke Hobbs.
It feels like his own character, where I feel like for the past couple of years, if not several years, The Rock has been playing The Rock in every movie, he's so charismatic, he's funny, he's like great on screen, but it's nice to see him in a role where he isn't winking the entire time.
I agree. And like looking back on it, because I hadn't seen this movie in a couple years, you look back and you're kind of shocked when he doesn't wink at the camera, right? Which is again that 2022 perspective on what he does, what his thing is.
Right.
But including the end of an era for this franchise, right? This movie has a scene. This is the movie or the franchise about street racers, and it has a scene where they have to get new cars to do a mission, and they go to race. They have a whole thing where he's like, "Oh, also this is where we really realize the commitment this saga has to the."
Hold on, before you get there, this saga has dedication to several things.
Yes.
First and foremost, being
family.
The second being Dominic only loving good old American muscle.
Truly.
You will never catch this motherfucker in anything other.
He ain't driving no imports.
He ain't driving
no turbo
imports.
boosters.
No turbos. Only good old American muscle. They are also dedicated to the third thing. And Spencer, what is that third thing?
Booty, baby.
This franchise loves chops. It's hilarious. Like every single move, every time they're like, let's go. You know, we're going to.
There's a street race.
There's a street race. There's a it's late night. It's in
flash
the city.
through montage scene of booty and cars and racing and just like
and drinking and hanging out and partying.
But
it always
every
starts-
single one of these movies has something like that.
It always starts with a pair of cheeks and a car.
Yep.
It's literally no. It is
Again,
specific-
the three levels of horny.
The 3 levels of horny. Horny for the boys, horny for the girls, and horny for the cars. And so like every single time it starts with a lady with a booty walking into the street race. Every single time starts exactly.
It has to.
They could. I feel like they have just shot like in like, you know, like Forced and Furious, which is my name for the fourth one. If you don't remember from last time, Forced and Furious. It feels like they just shot like hours of booty footage and hours of car footage and hours of street racing footage, and they were just like, all right, we know we're going to use this every time, let's just get a bunch of it right now.
They use it for all the movies.
And they just use the same
They
set.
schedule a whole month just for
Literally
this.
just for booty footage and for car footage.
But right, so we get to this scene.
Yeah.
Brian and Dom need to get a new car. Brian's all freaking. He's like, "Oh, look at this one! I've always wanted one of these."
Yeah.
And so they line up the race. They're racing for pink slips, and then smash cut to them driving the car into their base. They just skip the race. They're over it.
The street racing franchise is utterly uninterested in street racing at this point.
In this level of street racing, right? Because this movie does have a street race, which is very fun.
Right.
Between 4 characters.
Yes, which is great.
They've evolved to the point that they were originally like buddy movies, and then they escalated to an ensemble heist film. I mean, again, I always say it. They comment on this in this saga. They go, started out stealing DVD players, which is a very old-fashioned sentence. And now they're like, the third act of this movie is them heisting a bank vault out of a police station and dragging it through Rio.
Hell yeah, brother.
But it doesn't feel wrong for some reason, like which I'll never quite understand why.
It's every single time the stakes get raised further and further and further.
Which is kind of my lesson about these movies is the principle of escalation and how to do it correctly.
Right.
But so yeah, this is kind of where we become, like I said, the ensemble, the heist, the full triple down on family.
Yeah.
And then we proceed into what I want to now talk about for a little bit, which is the third act. You do not know how they filmed the bank vault, do you?
No, you alluded to it during our watching that you would explain it to me. You would talk to me about it in greater detail.
Okay.
I mean, if I were to guess,
Throw a guess.
Clearly, the cars are real.
Mm-hmm.
In so much of this franchise up until this point, and specifically in this scene, I can tell that these cars are real. That being said, there is clearly some trickery happening with the vault. Some. Exactly how much and how, I don't know. Spencer, go ahead and explain.
We're going to start this, right? So the first shot where the cars come whipping out and the bank vault starts rolling and crashes through things. To my knowledge, I know the bank vault is real, but the camera you get it crushing those like pillars, they they just were going to risk the camera because they had no way of measuring exactly how it was going to flip.
Right.
Because it's a like 9-ton bank vault.
So they're actually pulling an actual bank vault.
Here's the thing.
Or just a big...
That is a real one, right? Flipping. The way they do most of the dragging stuff, where it's just dragging behind them, they cut a truck in half and built a bank vault around it. So when it's like skidding and turning, this dude in a truck with like, it's hard to get him in and out of it, right? So like he had like a bathroom thing in there, I think.
Whoa.
And he's like driving with this little thing. And so the only real CGI on most of the shots is like CGIing the bottom so it covers the tires.
Okay. Because
right?
that was kind of...
In the sparks that are coming off
when
of it.
I was peeping, and that's what I'm talking about when I say trickery. I was, like I'm doing the filmmaker thing and being like, how'd they do that? You know what I mean? And doing a little bit of like...
Well, because it's obviously a lot of it's real. Like you can tell.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. All of the cars feel very real. It was the bank vault where it's like, maybe some of the edges, are a little too sharp or a little not sharp enough, and I couldn't tell exactly what the difference was. And you saying that maybe the bottom was CGI, like that feels
that's all that
so
it is.
right.
You know what I mean? And like when they're flipping it through buildings, it's the real vault flipping through buildings.
I mean,
when
like I can't imagine it's
not
like
real
an actual
buildings.
like...
I will say I know for a fact one of them is.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure because I'm a behind the scenes photo. You can like see it crashing,
Right.
which is nuts. But like cars smashing into it, those are real cars.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's and I mean obviously when they're like when they go wide as they say and they split across and start dragging it up the middle to get the cops off their back.
Right.
A lot of that's obviously like staged and set up, but
Obviously.
like it's destroying real things they've put there. Which is, and I'll ask you this: how does this rank up in like recent memory third act action sequences? Because I can't think of many that I think are more thrilling, better executed than the bank vault sequence in the like 10 or 12 minute sequence in Fast 5. It's like Mad Max Fury Road, obviously. That one is like the pinnacle of action filmmaking.
Yeah.
And then you have something different with John Wick, where it's like the hand-to-hand combat kind of thing.
Yeah.
But in terms of stunt work and thrilling sequences, few rank as high for me as the Fast 5 sequence.
The first thing that springs to mind is something like Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah.
But that's like... But it, like, I feel
No. I actually think it's a great comparison.
Yeah.
The dedication to real flying, real driving.
I was just about to,
I think that's a great comparison.
Yeah.
Which is a good recent movie to kind of throw it to.
Right. Yeah, I think I like you were saying, like the third act in this movie feels, it's so practical. It feels so down to earth and so thrilling because of it. Like I will get to this in later movies where CGI starts to become a little bit more prevalent. This, it just, because it's so practical because it's so real, it feels so good. It looks
heavy
so good.
hitting and
Yes.
like, well, and it
doesn't feel floaty and fake. It feels very real
Well,
and tactile.
it's not bouncy.
No, not at all.
And again, I'll say this, like, it's not the greatest fight sequence, like hand-to-hand fight sequence ever, but I think it's a good one.
Right.
Is The Rock versus Vin Diesel.
Right.
When he crashes into the Charger and Dom looks at him, you just made a big mistake.
Yeah.
And then they go unload a can of whoop ass on each other. It's just unreal. Right? Like, there's a point in this where The Rock rips off a bulletproof vest like it's a jacket to let his arms work better.
No kidding.
Right? They're throwing each other through buildings, through
Right.
windows, tackling each other out of stuff, hitting each other with everything they can find.
Yeah.
Like, it needs to be shot a little better.
Yeah.
But it's a very inventive fight sequence in the fact that they're throwing each other through walls and it's grungy and it's dirty.
Yeah.
And up till this point, I think it might be the best hand-to-hand fight sequence.
Oh, 100%.
Up till 5, it is.
100%. I would say just about every movie it feels like
That gets a little
That
better.
gets a
I
little
think
better.
everything gets a little better. movie to
every
movie.
single time.
In,
up
in
until
terms
this
of
point.
craft, 5 is, again, in my opinion, the pinnacle of this this saga.
Yeah.
Is this movie in every respect. Character interactions are seamless.
Yeah.
The second the whole team is together, it's like instantaneous. They're working together great.
Right.
Roman and Tej's reunion is amazing.
Yeah.
When are you going to give Martin Luther King his car back? As soon as you give Rick James his jacket back.
It's so good.
It's like, that's so perfect for those characters. Then you introduce Giselle, Gal Gadot's character, and Han.
Fucking on.
Best hair in the business.
Best hair in the business. I want to be his little snack.
We all do. You introduce them. They kind of have an interaction, wondering what's going on.
Yeah.
A couple more people show up. Then the team shows up and they all say hi. And then I genuinely love this moment of the Vin Diesel and Tyrese meeting.
Yeah.
Where they kind of square off a little bit.
Yeah.
Which, right, like if you think about the franchise as a whole,
Right.
Tyrese was the guy that replaced Vin Diesel
100%.
as the second to Paul Walker guy.
Yeah.
And then he wasn't in the next one, and then they brought him back for this one, and they all of a sudden fit in seamlessly.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't think of another series, franchise that has worked quite this well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I mean, the only thing that I can even remotely think of
Like Avengers stuff.
yeah, I was just about to
Right?
say, was like, yeah, something like that. Because it's like, I mean, you think of a movie, like you look at a movie like Justice League, and that just
Well, yeah,
doesn't
but
quite
like think
happen.
of other heist movies, right? Like Ocean's 11 being the example I'll use.
Yeah.
We're getting the team together, but this is the first time we're meeting the
all of them,
characters.
yeah.
These are pre-established characters that show up, still feel like the characters we know for the most part,
Right.
and interact with each other incredibly well.
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I wouldn't even dumb it down by saying for the most part. I would say completely. I feel like they completely feel like the same characters that we've seen before. I mean, Tyrese is still Tyrese. That the same kind of same Tyrese he was in Too Fast, Too Furious.
Which is a man having the time of his life.
A man having the time of his life. And then like I like how they kind of evolve his character even throughout the movie. It's like this is a mission impossible. This is a mission freaking insanity.
Yeah, dude,
Such a
this has
stupid,
some of the
great
best
line.
lines. Like,
Oh, it's
I love
so
when he
good.
walks in and he's like just delivered the RC car into the police
Yeah.
station. He walks in, he's like, I might be a better special agent than you ever were. And you're like, oh my God, you're so cocky.
It's so good.
Mission Impossible. This just went from Mission Impossible to Mission freaking Insanity. Is one of the great like campy movie lines
So
of the
good.
modern era, at least.
I think there's something to be said for this franchise of just like
Saga.
this saga,
Family.
this saga of just literally just like giving yourself over to it. Because it's like, if you want to poke holes, you could poke holes if you wanted to. Now,
Of course. Look,
okay,
there are people
with-
I know who adamantly dislike these movies because they can't buy it. Like someone who I often makes fun of me for loving these. He's always like, The Rock just shows up and starts shooting people with no repercussions. Like, how would he do that? It's like, first of all, this is a movie where they drift cars and steal bank vaults. What is the problem with The Rock being a little bit crazy?
Right.
Like, it's that kind of thing that I you know, giving yourself to them. I think the actors do it, right?
Yes.
MCU actors have talked about that.
Yeah.
Marvel Cinematic Universe actors are like, oh, you have to give yourself to it and let yourself be a part of it. And some really do, and some really don't.
Yeah.
No one in a Fast and Furious movie is not at least giving their all
yeah,
and being a part of the team and the family of it. You know, I think that is one of the coolest things about this, and you feel it when you watch it.
Right.
And if you don't give yourself to it,
Right.
it breaks. Now, that's not a dig on the movie. This is not me going, you can't think critically about these.
Right, 100%.
This movie is like a gauntlet of fun
Yeah.
and great character interactions and thrilling sequences that like any complaint I have dissipates, where I'm just like, I don't care. This is amazing.
I feel like there are other movies that I've seen up until this point and even past this point where maybe if you don't give yourself over to it, it may break a little bit. But with Fast 5, that movie is just solid.
It's
Like,
just a
solid.
damn good movie.
Yeah, from my, maybe up until this point, maybe even past this point. We'll get to 6 and 7 here in a second. But I think, with Fast 5 specifically, it's like you could not give. It's going to bring you in. They thought I was out and they pulled me back in. That I think that would be a naysayer. I feel like even a naysayer can get on board with Fast 5 because that movie's just good.
It's just good.
Yeah.
It's just good. It's just like top to bottom, the fundamentals are all there. And then they push certain things so far past where like any of these movies have even approached.
Right.
Like again, the jump in, I can't think of another series where number 5 is far and away the best one.
Right.
And fully fundamentally changing what these movies are.
Right.
Which is before they're kind of like down to earth, street level for the most part.
Yeah.
Crime thrillers or whatever. And this one just goes full blown, all out, sprint to the finish line, family, Corona, and cars.
Right.
Like,
I feel like we see the roots of this in Forced and Furious.
of course.
I feel
of course.
like I said, like it feels very much like a setup episode where we see the roots of this. We see the roots of family being like the theme across the rest of it. that isn't quite there, and we're not quite there to the same degree in like Too Fast, Too Furious or Tokyo Drift. I feel like we see the beginnings of what this franchise will become in 4, but it hits its absolute pinnacle in 5 because of that.
I fully agree with you. And then 6 becomes like 6 is a tough one, right? We'll kind of move into here now. 6 is an interesting movie in that it is a lot of what 5 did perfectly. It does really well.
Right.
Which is those character interactions, which is like the sincerity, which is the everyone buying in. But it starts to show a few cracks. It's a little too long.
Yes.
Which I think is that movie's biggest dig. But that being said, they bring back Letty.
It is Fast and Furious 6, Letty's Revenge.
Letty's Revenge.
I've said it. I kept saying it during the movie. Every time Letty would be on screen, I'd look over at Spencer and say, Letty's Revenge.
She's not even getting revenge. I don't know what that
It's Fast and Furious 6, Letty's Revenge.
But like this is the kind of movie, it's like the funny superhero trope, right? Where they fight a supervillain who's similar to them.
Yes.
You know what I mean? That's what this is. They're fighting another vehicular warfare team.
Yes.
This one does have my favorite thing about this movie is the flip car, which is that kind of like armored one that like will kind of crab crawl around like the drift car kind of thing where they're ramping people off. And again, this one commits to practical stunt work in a lot of the sequences.
Right.
Like even the end with the plane, a lot of that is real. Now, not as soon as it starts to lift. No, I'm telling you because I've seen the footage of them building the whole thing with the cars driving next to it. And that makes it as soon as it starts like taking off, obviously it's CG.
Right.
But they're still dangling cars in the air and having actors on top of them.
Right.
The elements are still real. They just kind of rely on to do what would be impossible to film completely for real. They do with CGI.
Right.
Which is I'm more okay with.
Right.
Than what the earlier ones did.
See, I mean, that's that. But there's something to be said about planning the movie around those. The things that are being able to do practically. That being said, the kind of antithesis of that is what we were talking about earlier, where every single time they raise the ante,
Get bigger,
they escalate every.
Well,
single
this one
time.
they fight a tank,
right?
Which a lot of that is practical.
Right. Like so the part with Dom and Letty flying through the air.
Yeah, you didn't know they really did that?
They really did that?
No, but like them using a tank to run over cars is like real. And like the cars driving around it, real. Paul Walker jumping, he just goes, screw it, and jumps in between the things. Real.
Yeah.
Obviously Tyrese isn't jumping off a car that's getting sucked under a tank. But Tyrese is really jumping onto something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
This one in particular still very much relies on the practical stunts and the practical effects in order to nail the look and the feel of these action sequences. That being said, there is quite a bit more CG than in the previous, any of the previous movies.
But that being said, let kind of step away from that for a second. How did you think like character interactions, like The Rock? Here's where we kind of see him change a little bit. He's still got the same level of intensity, but they're upping some of the comedy elements, which in this one still works.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? He's still talking in catchphrases.
Yeah.
He still is as intense as anything you've ever seen. I mean, he's jumping off of high rises, landing on cars, pulling out his gun, flipping off. Not a scratch on the guy.
Of course. Because he's indestructible.
He's The Rock, dude.
Yeah. He's literally made of
Do you
rocks.
smell what he's cooking? I
can literally smell it from here. It doesn't smell great. I'm not going to lie.
It's maybe not his best.
It smells
work.
like sweat.
Again, not as bad. It smells like sweat. Oh, that one got me. Okay. But outside of him, like we see the cracks here, the character interactions and motivations for everyone else work. Because I love Paul Walker in this movie.
Yes. I think Paul Walker is in a great place emotionally. I think Dom and Letty are really interesting in this movie. Like Dom is just like, he is putting on the like the swagger and the like, I'm just happy that you're back. You know what I mean? Like it isn't like I think there's a world in which that either it's written or performed a little bit more like desperate. You know what I mean? Where it's like, I've missed you. I need you back.
He maintains the Dominic Toretto cool.
And the Dominic Toretto cool, and it's just like, it's Letty. Of course he's like, okay, she doesn't have her memory. She got me. Like, I really appreciate that they like, it isn't this, that it doesn't feel desperate, because I feel like that's a way they could have played it. And I'm glad that they did.
And I think an interesting thing that should be said here is half of the team doesn't know Letty.
Right.
Giselle doesn't really know Letty. Roman and Tej don't really know Letty. The Rock doesn't know. And it also, they team up in this movie.
Yeah.
The Rock isn't hunting them. He recruits them to help to get them in a position to make their family whole again. Which, again, I love the tripling down on that theme.
Yeah.
Because it's what makes the sincerity work.
Yeah.
But what I love about half the team kind of not knowing her is that they're showing up for everyone who does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The call came, they showed up.
Yeah.
And yes, they're also working for pardons. But you don't hear anyone the whole movie going, I got to get my part. That's not what they're talking about.
It's
they
like
don't
that
ultimately care about that.
I think that even goes along with what I was saying earlier about the desperation, where it's like it's not about getting the pardon of getting Letty back. It is like showing up for your family. Yes, she doesn't have the memory she does before, but it's still Letty. It's like, yes, I'm getting a pardon. I'm doing this for the pardon, but I would do this if I didn't get it or not, because I'm doing it for my family. I'm doing it for Dom.
And I love that they don't just drop Paul Walker's not desperation, but his sadness over this, because he still blames himself for getting her. They carry that into this, where he has a whole like side story in this thing where he goes and sees Braga, the villain of Fast and Furious, and talks to him and does this whole thing. Which
wait, which movie?
Fast and what do you? I don't even know.
Forced and Furious.
Yeah,
right.
But he goes and does on this like that could feel like a side quest, but doesn't, because it feels informative to the story and, more importantly, to his character.
Right.
Like, I love the scene when he gets back and he kind of approaches Dom timidly. Honestly, like you can feel it.
Yeah.
And Dom's just essentially like, whatever you found out's for you.
Yeah.
Whatever we do next is for her. Is for family.
Love it.
You know what I mean?
Love it.
Again, I said it last time. Not subtle.
No,
but authentic to what we're doing.
But not winking, not like
winking. They're buying in. It's they keep they're smart in that, like, after Dom sees her for the first time and she shoots him and he's kind of pulling the bullet out himself, I might add.
This is the first movie where he literally becomes the Hulk.
Yeah, he's just a super person.
He's literally just a superhuman at this point.
But the Brian's the one that comes up and kind of talks to him. You know, he's like,
Yeah.
"Are you sure it was her? Like, are you sure she saw you?" And he's like, "She looked right at me, Brian." Like,
Right.
it's knowing who has the highest stakes, right? Like, Brian doesn't want to believe when he first sees the picture of Letty that it's real,
Literally.
because
Gets
he can't,
angry.
He can't live with it.
Yeah.
And so when he shows up, they kind of prove it's her. Whatever, they go with it. Well, he lays it out. He's like, "You get us to Letty, we'll get you Shaw. Full pardons all the way around."
Right.
You know what I mean? He's working for everyone. He
Yeah.
wants what's best for everybody.
Yeah.
Because he wants to go home.
Yeah.
And I like that theme too for his character of like, look, we have everything we want, but it just doesn't feel right. You know what I mean? He wants to go home.
Right.
And I love that storyline. Also bringing back the guy he bodies in the fourth one. He goes back and he has to get into prison, so he calls the agent.
Yeah.
Right? He shows up and he just smashes his face into the wall again. And he's like laying on the ground. He's like, and this is again a testament to these actors doing this, where that doesn't feel winky when he goes, again?
Literally.
Like, it doesn't feel like he's winking that it happened for. It's like an authentic representation of what he's feeling.
These movies have so much love for their own history and for their own characters. I mean, like you mentioned, he shows, like, the fact that they bring back Yelena, is that her name? From Fast
I believe,
Five.
yeah.
Yelena, Yolanda, whatever her name is.
Well, yeah, she kind of is Dom's love, which this is another thing I want to talk about, right? That could be presumed as like the worst decision made in the movie from a character and story perspective, but they find a way to sell it for me.
Right.
Where they give it the Elena, yes. Where Dom sees her, they're in a relationship. She's left Brazil to be with him.
Right.
You know? And they essentially are talking and going, she's like, if it was my husband, there's nothing that would stop me. You know what I mean?
Right. The thing that brought them together was this loss.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute he has the ability to get it back, she completely understands where he is.
And she also pops up again in 7 for a bit.
I love
you know
that.
what I mean? And I love that you point this out, because that is something that I think is amazing about this. And we'll talk about this when we talk about how they handle Paul Walker's passing.
Right.
Is that they do things and they go out of their way to let everyone be a part of it. You know what I mean? To look at their, like you said, their history, what things happen. Like Hector shows up in 7 again. Like,
love it.
Hasn't been in a movie since the first one, and he pops back up. And it's
I
like,
love
awesome,
that.
dude.
It's so much fun.
Like I'm so into that element of this saga. And it makes it feel, I'm going to say it every time, man.
I'm going to giggle every time.
It makes it have this like depth to the world.
And all the actors are clearly also very here for it.
Yeah, you know,
like you said, like I mean, it could be so easy for it to be cheesy, and maybe it is a little bit. But if you give yourself over to it, it's great. It's so loving.
I
That's
think
the thing.
I think giving yourself to it may be a weird word because I think these movies win you over.
Oh yeah,
You know what I mean? I do think you have to be open to it.
Yeah.
But they win you over regardless. They're like, fuck it, you're gonna love this.
Right. Yeah, it's like it because I feel like there are other franchises that could do something similar, where it almost feels cheap. But for this saga, I said it.
Thank you.
For this, it feels so loving and caring, and just in the name of like fun. If you don't recognize Hector, it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter that you didn't. He's still here and he's still playing a part. But if you do, like,
it's awesome. It's like,
great.
oh, dude, it's Hector.
Yeah.
Like,
still can't take a punch. Like, great.
yeah.
Greatness. What's his name? The villain.
Owen Shaw.
Shaw, but the actor specifically as well. Luke Evans. I feel like
Luke Evans.
Luke Evans. I think he's a phenomenal actor. I like there's one thing that irked me a tiny bit. So there's this they have
we talked about
we talked about this a tiny bit. They have this kind of it's Dom and it's Shaw, and they're like facing off against each other. They're having
in a scene that I very much like.
Which in a scene I very much like as well. I do think it like perfectly
It comes off of a good race.
Right.
A character-based race, and Dom and Letty having their first real moment back together.
Right.
Into this scene.
Right. And it puts them very much in opposition to each other and very much like a character foil to each other. It's like, you know, like, and they profess their internal trait that makes them who they are. For Dom, it's family. It's dedication.
Did your brother
loyalty.
ever tell you not to mess with a man's family?
Right. Is loyalty. For Shaw, it's precision. And that's what he says. It's like, you know, precision. The thing that frustrates me about that statement is later in the movie when they're in the tank, he is just having the time of his life, just like crashing the tank into cars and stuff. And it doesn't feel very precise.
Look, I recognize your point. I actually think it's a valid point. But I do think the point of that is that he's always got a contingency. He's always got a plan. He's always got something. You know what I mean? Like, he took the hand he was dealt and was like, all right, well, I know they're going to take the people. It's his enjoyment of it.
Right.
It's the choice by the directing and the actor to enjoy what he's doing in that moment is what makes it a little rough.
Yeah. Where it's like Letty is sitting there in the seat next to him, and then she's like, gosh, like, you know, like, stop. Like, you don't have to do that. You know what I mean? It's like that kind of thing where it's like, it's not him being cruel and calculating against his enemies. It's just him being cruel to the world.
Yes.
Which doesn't feel
It doesn't feel like a
precise
guy
to
who's
me.
just looking to get out of this. You know what I mean?
Yes, it doesn't. That somewhat like that. I don't love that. You know what I mean? Like I wish it was more like I'm here for the cruelty, as if it's against his enemies or his perceived enemies at the very least, whatever, however you want to describe it. It's just like the fact that he's like smiling and like laughing along with smashing cars and that kind of thing. It's like that doesn't feel precise. And that is like, and if he didn't literally describe his motivation
As being a precise guy,
being a precise individual and putting precision above all else, I wouldn't be saying this right now. But it's the fact that they like gave it a name, they put it into words, and then they kind of like for the rest of the movie, they very much doubled down on that. Mm-hmm. It's like that one choice, which is like, and they like not only like if he was just smiling and enjoying it, that's one thing. But they literally have Letty next to him being like, "Stop! Like, what are you doing?" For her, obviously, there's some conflict there within her because she's like, she doesn't remember her former life. She doesn't remember being on the good side, quote unquote. I'm using hard finger quotations here. She doesn't remember being on the good side, but even she is like, "Whoa, you're taking this too far."
Yeah.
So it's like that is like my one complaint, and he doesn't feel super 3-dimensional, which I would say is probably a complaint I could levy against a lot of villains in this franchise.
Totally.
I think, which like
if not all of them.
if not all of them. I mean, like,
But again, not here for the villains. I'm here for the
Fair.
character interactions, the family. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm here to see what crazy shenanigans these guys get up to.
right.
The other thing I think we should talk about in regards to this movie is Han and Giselle. This is the last time for Giselle. She dies.
Maybe
Well, she's too busy with Wonder Woman.
straight. She's got bigger paychecks to get later.
She dies.
Yeah.
In this movie, saving Han, right?
Yeah.
Which then prompts Han to go to Tokyo finally.
Yeah.
And there's a post-credit scene where we re-see Han die and we see the villain of the next one.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I knew this. I knew this was coming.
Okay, so you were aware that Statham
I was
was
aware
gonna be
this
back-
was coming. I knew Jason Statham was going to be the big bad in one of these movies. I also know he's going to be in Hobbs and Shaw, so I know a little bit about like some of that future, or knew about some of that future.
You'll kind of see a big debate a lot of Fast and Furious fans have about these movies,
Right.
wherein why is the guy that killed Han
Right.
getting a spinoff?
Right.
Which is a thing that I'll be curious about your opinion, because that's a big part of the discourse for the fans of these.
Right.
Of these,
I'm also interested as I'm to jump ahead a tiny bit. I am a little nervous for 8 and 9 in Hobbs and Shaw, because I know some of the discourse around these movies. I know they're not as beloved as 5 and 7 are specifically. Like I know those two are kind of the upper echelon of where this saga goes. So I'll be interested. I'm a little bit hesitant. I'm a little bit nervous. I'm excited. I'm interested. I'm ready, but I'm a little bit hesitant, a little bit nervous for the future. That being said, I don't want to jump too far ahead. But we can jump into 7 now. But as I was saying, like I did know Jason Statham. I'd even seen the scene of where he crashes the car and gets out like, Dominic Toretto, you don't know who I am, but you're about to, or whatever.
you're about to find out, and blows him up.
Blows him up.
Okay, so that
Justice for Han.
Justice for Han, always. That is the linchpin of the movie, right? That sets us on this journey
Right.
of these guys who are... Oh, and 6 ending with a favorite theme of ours, which is barbecue with the family, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're back to having it. I love it.
Yeah.
And most importantly, thank you for fast cars.
Yeah.
Boom. Amazing.
A wide shot of LA,
right.
of downtown LA in the background.
It's amazing.
Smash cut.
So we do that. That's kind of beginning. And then Jason Statham's character blows up the house.
Right.
He attacks Han. He kills Han, blows up the house. And this is kind of where we start seeing, and important to say this, but Paul Walker died halfway through filming this movie. They were on Christmas break when he was in an accident and died. So they had to pivot what they were going to do.
Right.
So there's scenes where you can kind of tell it's not Paul Walker. And Paul Walker's brothers came in to finish the movie for him.
I think I would feel a little conflicted about his inclusion in this movie had it not been for the fact that his family clearly cared. I'm literally even getting a little choked up just talking about this. Clearly cared about this franchise, about this movie in particular, and about finishing their brother's work. We can continue further into what they do with it. But it's just so touching to me to know.
I say let's just get into it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I said this to you after the movie ended. Both of us were a little teary-eyed.
Yeah.
It gets me legitimately
Dang
gets me
it.
every time.
Yeah.
The way they handle it is the family's at the beach and he's off playing with Mia and their son.
Right.
And literally if you didn't know Paul Walker died, it would be the most confusing thing you've ever seen. Because
Right.
it is a tribute to they're the cast's literal brother. You
Right.
know what I mean? Like the fact that these people are doing this is nuts, right? Like
Right.
it's everyone gets a moment of like looking at the beauty of his life, you know,
Right.
what could have been. Dom drives off, kind of has a bit of a moment of sadness, and then car pulls up next to him. You thought you could leave without saying goodbye, and it cuts over, and it's obviously not him. It's his brothers, but it's done up to look like him. And then it starts question. Because
is that true in that shot? it to me, it looks like a shot from one of the other movies.
It could have been. It could have been.
I think that is like a rotoscoped in shot from a different movie because I think that's Paul Walker. I think that is an actual shot.
What I mean is it's not him filming that scene.
Obviously.
You know what I mean? It's they bring him in, and then they do a montage, essentially a tribute to him in the movie. This is not during the credits. This is before the last moment before we start seeing credits. Montage with Vin Diesel kind of monologuing about how they were always brothers.
Right.
And then the camera pulls up, Dom drives straight, Paul Walker peels off, we follow him, fade to white for Paul. With sorry, I'm getting teary-eyed now.
It was the for Paul that really did it.
So I'll stand by. We're seeing something similar right now in movies with Chadwick Boseman.
Yeah.
He's died. He died before they started filming Black Panther: Wakanda Forever.
Right.
But the first trailer of that movie is out.
Yeah.
And they have killed off T'Challa. They've killed off his character.
It's clearly like a funeral.
There's a funeral. There's memorials for him, which is, by the way, I understand. I get it. I don't think that's disrespectful. I think they're going to handle that well.
Yeah.
There's something to me that is so heartwarming and beautiful about how they handle it in this. And this is me talking about, I want to be clear, Furious 7, a Fast and Furious movie, the 7th one in the franchise, wherein there's a street fight where he goes, the street always wins, stomps, and the building collapses, right? This movie ends with a moment that makes me so genuinely sad and happy and feeling all these different emotions, right? Of like, oh, they got the chance to do something for him.
Right.
And on top of that, this movie came out around when I lost a friend.
Yeah.
And so this song means like a ton to me, and it's always been a weirdly cathartic thing and a connection between those two events in my life, because I also love this franchise.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like in a real genuine way, and this is me kind of getting on my soapbox about what art can mean for people. Like I talk about Marvel movies as like, we're not going to look back on them as like cinematic masterpieces, but we're going to look back on them as these things that meant the fucking world to us.
Right.
And that's how I look at the Fast and Furious movies as well.
Right.
It's like Paul Walker, this used to be his franchise.
Yeah.
And he died, man.
Yeah.
And instead of killing him off mid-movie, right, which they could have done that. They could have filmed a scene where his car crashes, he dies, and furthering essentially exploiting that to further the plot of the movie. And they collectively went, we're not doing that. No way. But they also didn't kill him off at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
They retire him.
Yeah.
They retire the character onto a better, more beautiful life. There's a really touching scene in the middle where they're on the plane and they're talking, Brian and Dom are talking. And he's essentially like, oh, you still miss the bullets, you know? And Brian kind of laughs at that. And Vin Diesel just gets to give this beautiful little monologue about like the most powerful thing you ever did was be a good man to Mia.
Yeah.
And a great father to my nephew. You know what I mean? It's this like ultra, that I can't think of anything else that's done this. I don't know if you can.
No.
Right?
Like, I mean, like literally like the antithesis of this. Like I can think of a couple of ways where things like this were mishandled, which weren't done well. Like the first thing that comes up, which is almost like, but silly in comparison, but like from a visual standpoint, from an editing standpoint, it reminds me a lot of the end of the Twilight movies, where it's like we have this like weird wrap up of you know the love between Edward and Bella, which is like in the movie it's fine, it's just cheesy, but from like it's funny because they look kind of similar, they feel kind of similar in terms of like the editing and the rhythm and that kind of thing, but it is insane how much more impactful it is and how much more meaningful and sweet. I am very happy to say that I think they handled all of that incredibly well
with like a deft hand, man. Like they didn't,
like it's not subtle.
No,
as we've
but it's
said
not. But it's not
it's
pretending that what happened to Paul Walker didn't happen.
Right.
It's fully. I mean, again, if you didn't know what happened in real life, you would be you're like, why are we doing a montage between these characters? Like, what's happened? But knowing what happened, it's like the most beautiful thing I think they could have done.
It's so sweet. It's so sincere. Like it isn't. Like you said. Like it doesn't feel like they're trying to take advantage of somebody's passing for cheap emotions. Like they didn't kill him off mid movie, like you said. Like they didn't milk that for story within the movie. They said, no, we are going to tell the story and we will give him a beautiful life beyond this franchise, or beyond the saga, excuse me. And it is incredibly touching and incredibly sweet.
And I will just say now, I mean, you haven't seen the next chunk.
Yeah.
He's still felt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They don't just ignore the fact that he exists. There's justifications for why he's not there.
Yeah.
There's reasons, and there's like moments where it's like it's clear that he's still in their lives.
Right.
They don't just ignore this and move on.
Yeah.
It's there. And I think a lot of, and this is very telling in my opinion of this series, I think a lot of the commitment and true like unrelenting sincerity is a little gone later.
Yeah.
And you'll see that. We'll talk about that. But a lot of that, in my opinion, Paul Walker's not there.
Yeah.
He's one of the core members of what this became. Anyway, I just, you know what I mean?
To go back just one tiny bit and to say one last thing, I think another, because I mentioned there's like a couple examples that I can use that I think mishandle it. I think one of the other franchises that mishandles a important actor to the franchise passing away mid-movie, before the movie, whatever, is Carrie Fisher and the Star Wars movies. I'm talking Rise of Skywalker.
Okay,
She died after.
That you're right. Sorry.
She died after. Well, she died after they were filming, so she filmed the entirety of Last Jedi, and then she wasn't there for Rise of Skywalker.
They
Now,
use old footage,
and they reuse old footage, and then they have a scene where she passes away mid movie, and it feels cheap. It feels unearned. You know, she's like,
it feels like they had to do it.
She's holding the golden award,
Han's golden medal
from the medal of Yavin or whatever, and it just feels cheap.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't work. A lot about that movie doesn't work. This is not the sole thing about that movie that doesn't work, but it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know. I feel like they could have done it different. I feel like they could have acknowledged her passing in a different way and not like, you know, I don't think they were trying to exploit it. Clearly, I don't want to make it seem like that's what I'm trying to say, but I think that it isn't handled. And it's funny because, like, I think if you like, I think Star Wars has a much more prestigious name, and it's still a schlocky action franchise, sci-fi action franchise. But I think there's more prestige and more gravitas to the Star Wars name than to the Fast and Furious saga. And so the fact that these filmmakers were able to
I'll also add that James Wan, first time director to the franchise, first and only time directing one of these movies,
right,
was put in this situation.
Yeah.
And he didn't phone it in. You know what I mean? Like, he committed wholeheartedly to, because like, you know, there's the thing of like filmmaker, right? Like, you're putting your name on it, you want it to be a certain way. I could see a lot of directors being like, well, it's the end of the movie, it's going to be weird, and that's what it's going to be known for.
Right.
And James Wan does not do that. He is not prideful about it. He puts this in his movie, and he's James Wan. Like, he could have controlled that more. You know what I mean?
And like,
he has enough clout to dictate that, and he wholeheartedly was supportive of this and did this and let it be the movie and let it be the last note of the movie and handled it beautifully.
Yeah. So much of the rest of this movie is a James Wan movie, but this scene, this section, this idea, this send off, is not James Wan. It is the entirety of all. It is everything that came before him and everything since put together to send off a brother,
their family member.
Yeah.
This some of these people have been working with him for like a decade.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Or more. Like, at this point,
much more. Yeah.
More.
If you ever want just a really emotional thing, is look up Tyrese at the crash site, and he's just like uncontrollably crying.
I can't. I know.
No, it's I saw it. It was like heart wrenching. It's like, but you just feel that, right? Which again is what these movies are. They're family, and that doesn't just end here, right? Which, and to talk about something else, this is also where The Rock, and a little dig on The Rock a little bit, is this is where the feud between him and Vin Diesel started, is because Vin Diesel kind of made life hard after Paul Walker died.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, I think is one of his best friends. You know what I mean? I believe Vin Diesel's daughter is named after Paul Walker.
Oh, is that true?
I believe so. And so, that's kind of where that started, and then you can kind of feel it in the movie. You know what I mean? Where The Rock's role is heavily reduced.
Yeah.
But anyway, last thoughts on that. I think they handled it beautifully.
Yeah.
It's one of the most emotional scenes in like a blockbuster period, and a lot of movies knowing the true story. Now we'll kind of talk about the movie itself and the fun stuff to be had within it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
We were talking earlier about globetrotting. I think the where the other ones take place across the globe, there isn't globetrotting within the
It's
movie.
not Mission Impossible-esque in that way.
And this one is. We talked about this a little bit after the movie. And he asked me, and you asked me, like, does that work for you? And I don't know. Like, I don't know. Like, it's fun, but it just so that I have a couple of problems with it. It just feels very like MacGuffin heavy. It feels very plotty, where it's like, oh, we got to go here and do the thing and get the thing to get to the girl to get to the girl to get to the thing to do the thing to start the thing.
Yeah, but Kurt Russell's in it.
But Kurt Russell is in it.
This is also the beginning of them just pulling crazy talent for these movies.
It's literally just the king himself, Kurt Russell.
It's
hallowed be
unbelievable.
than name.
Yeah, and he's good in it.
True.
He's having the time of his life.
Again, like not winking at all, like just
He
like
plays a massive, like big personality character.
yeah.
But he's in the movie.
He's in
man.
the movie.
He's committed.
He's committed. I do really like Kurt Russell in this. And then I think this is also another kind of like step toward a less practical world, like,
yeah,
I mean, they're literally,
that is a thing.
they're jumping cars between buildings and
Well,
like,
and the crazy thing is a lot of the plane drop sequence.
Yeah.
So,
you said that, and I really question it.
Here's the real stuff. I know they backed cars out of a thing and did the drop for real. Now, I don't know. Obviously, we're really flying and drop cars out from 10,000 feet. But cars really backed out and fell.
Yeah.
Them flying in like that right before they dropped and landed is real. And then the vast majority of that sequence is real practical driving. And stuff.
that is not surprising.
Like that's the most practical sequence in the thing, I think. You know what I mean? Now, a lot of the driving in LA is real.
Right.
It's just it's cars driving on what essentially would be empty streets with like CGI cars, so they're not
right.
And they're fighting a drone, which is obviously fake.
Right.
Mixed in with shot of the Incredible Hulk fighting Jason Statham.
Literally, this is fully where Dom becomes a Hulk. He literally lifts a freaking car.
Yeah, I love that moment.
It's a good bit.
Brian comes in, he's like, "You sure you got this? Go!"
Good bit, and it's a funny bit for like them kind of acknowledging that like it's getting like again that they're pushing the envelope further, that they're like escalating
to
every
the
single
max.
Time. I fear for the future, whether that is past 9 or up to 9, of can they keep cashing that check? We've escalated a lot to this point. Jumping out of planes and like jumping across buildings.
This time
and,
it's not just about being fast.
I mean, like literally, like the street always wins. Stomp crashes an entire like. It is very big at this point. So I question how much further we can take it. Like, because we're bending it very hard. How far can we bend before it breaks?
And we talked about this a little bit. I feel the series should have stopped here at 7.
Yeah.
I feel like that send off to Paul Walker is the thing that should have let this franchise go.
It would have been the perfect place.
It would have been the perfect place, especially knowing where it goes. Where like The Rock and Vin Diesel having this massive like years-long feud,
right?
And kind of Fast 9 getting pushed a little bit so they can film Hobbs and Shaw, and like all the issues that caused with like Tyrese now hates The Rock because of that. All of these issues kind of crept in with Fate of the Furious. This is the last time I think everyone was on mostly good ground.
Yeah.
Like you could argue that The Rock and Dwayne Johnson don't actually share a scene in this movie. Because like the way they film it, it could have just been...
You said The Rock and Dwayne Johnson. I do.
They're the same. No, they play both parts. The Rock and Vin Diesel don't share a scene in this movie. Like, there's scenes with the characters, But like the way they filmed them, it very easily could have just been a stand-in.
I kind of want to scrub through the movie and see because I actually
because I know for a
remember.
fact 8 they're never on set together.
Yeah.
Ever, not once.
Yeah. It's like look, children.
Yeah, and look, we'll talk about this more when we get to the next ones. But like Vin Diesel's clearly not the easiest guy to work with anymore.
Oh, for sure.
For things that have happened with Justin Lin, the reason so much of what I love about 5, 6, 7, they make a good little trilogy.
Yeah.
They're the ones that kind of feel like they figure out what this saga is and commit to it hard. You know, because like I said. 1 through 4 are defined by not knowing quite what they want to be. All of them are very different from one another. These are defined, in my opinion, by settling on an option, settling on a theme, and sticking to it.
Yeah. Family,
and committing.
loyalty.
Yeah. Family, loyalty, massive stunt work.
Yeah.
Really, really impressive practical stunt work.
Yes.
That slowly fades off, but there's still the whole Saving Ramsey scene is still nuts how impressive some of that driving stuff is. 100%. You know what I mean? That's what defines this era of and family continues and all that stuff continues. CGI gets bigger and bigger in these later ones, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
I think maybe my favorite car up until this point, this is going to be a weird take. I think my favorite car up until this point in all of the movies is the off-roader that Dom drives in that scene.
Oh, the demon love child between the American Muscle and then like the armored vehicle.
Yeah, the one where it's got the 2 gigantic tires in the back.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but that thing does.
Oh, dude, it's reminiscent a little bit of Robert Pattinson's Batmobile, where it's just like a muscle car from hell.
That is
you know
true.
What I mean?
I just think that thing is bad like the huge tires.
No, it's amazing, dude.
Do it for me.
Like this has a couple of my favorite. I love that car. I love the Skyline. Brian drives in the third act where he's like going old school and whips under the semi and under and then
I love that I don't know if we mentioned it in the first episode or not. That scene in the very first movie literally made me gasp because I wasn't expecting it.
It's a nuts stunt.
And so when it goes under like the semi out of nowhere, like literally made me gasp. And so for them to like that,
they call back in this one and do it again.
Weirdly personal to me. Where it's like I don't know if anybody would have that exact same reaction that I did. Like I just wasn't expecting it, so it like startled me in a funny way. So it's like it felt weirdly personal to my reaction to that movie.
It's a little bit similar, right, to all the actors return, right? Where it's that same principle of a thing where it's like, oh, they love what they're doing and they love the history of it. They're going to keep it going. I had a connection to this random moment and they did too. Like, which is so cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I love that car. It's a cool car.
It's so sick, dude.
I think another thing to talk about for 7, James Wan. Like I think going from Justin Lin for the past, did he did he do 4, 5, 6
Tokyo Drift, Fast and Furious, Fast 5,
from
Fast and Furious 6,
to 7,
from 3 to 6.
Oh, excuse me, 3 to 6. I apologies. From 3 to 6, directed all of them, and then for James Wan for this debate, I think it's clear it's a different director.
Visually different, color grades different.
Color grades very different. It's very blue movie.
It has a different texture.
Yeah,
to it.
It feels very different.
More stylized as well.
Mm-hmm. I think this is the best the hand-to-hand action's ever been. I think they make some really fun, weird choices.
Oh, yeah, the camera flipping when they're flipping each other.
It's like
cool.
We and I have talked about kind of some of my
yeah, but that doesn't feel like it's quite attached to the actor. You know what I mean? It feels like it's just a big move that an actor's timed themselves.
To give a little bit of background, there's some things that annoy me and frustrate me in filmmaking. It's specifically with like impossible camera moves. So specifically CGI shots and impossible camera moves always annoy me. And then second, it is cameras that are like attached to the human body in some way usually annoy me, usually take me out of it because it feels very unnatural. And there are movies where that's kind of the point. That's like what they're trying to do. Empty Man is a movie that we've talked about recently where I understand where they're going for in the third act. I almost said the fourth act. In the third act, right at the end of the movie, there's like the use of a snorri cam, which is essentially like if you think of like the Hangover shot where they all wake up and the camera's like attached to them and it's looking right at their face as they're like walking through. That's a snorri cam. I don't love that. I don't love that look. I don't love that. It feels very much draws attention to itself in a way that I don't like. I like a little bit more of a camera that doesn't draw attention to itself. And so usually that kind of thing bothers me a little bit. That being said, I thought it was fun and like it was cool. It felt different. It felt
felt like a bold choice.
It felt like a bold choice, and I don't know. It was like, and at least it was clear. At least like all of the hand-to-hand action sequences feel very clear. We have a much better, like at least slightly better in terms of geography, but like the like shot to shot feels so much clearer than with Justin Lin at the helm, where there's a lot of shaky, there's a lot of kind of confusing motion and that kind of thing. But with James Wan, I think it's much the hand-to-hand action is so much clearer. But the thing that Justin Lin was always really great at, which was the clarity of the driving sequences, I think James Wan still holds on to that as well.
Oh, big
with
time.
the great clarity of the driving sequences.
Yeah, like here's the thing. I love James Wan as a director. I think he's visually bold. I think he The Conjuring is a movie I really like.
Yeah.
I think that movie feels like it's from the 70s. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like a way that sometimes feels hacky, but he sells it.
Yeah.
If you've seen Malignant, Furious.
I want to watch that so bad.
We're going to do it for the podcast. Furious 7 is a big reason he was able to make that. James Wan, I believe there was a time where he held this record. I think he still does. Only director to make two $1 billion movies in two different franchises.
Interesting.
He made Aquaman as well, and he made Furious 7, right? And these two movies are are what built his ability to kind of just make whatever he wants now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he's doing Aquaman 2, which will buy him, hopefully, Malignant 2.
Look, don't get me wrong. I also really like Aquaman. Look, is it a great movie? No, but it is a blast.
It's another one that like commits real hard to what it's doing.
And doing a lot of really fun, cool camera movement, bold action
that's
sequences.
like the transitions in that movie specifically call so much attention to themselves in a very fun way.
Yeah, I quite like Aquaman, like way more than I thought I would. I was not expecting anyway. But so I really do like the choice of James Wan directing this. I think he did a wonderful job. I think all of the action sequences are super cool.
And,
a lot of
handled
fun.
everything that he had to handle as a
super,
human being.
like,
you know what I mean?
Like, and one thing we didn't really talk about with Paul Walker stuff is like, look, it doesn't always 100% sell. It still looks surprisingly good. I mean, it looks better than even modern stuff.
Doesn't always sell, but never quite pulls you out.
No.
Like, and this thing is, we all knew going in too. So when we saw it, we were like, your first thought isn't, your first thought is, oh man.
And again, there's something to be said where it's like, okay, you know, it's not Paul Walker, but you know, it's one of his brothers.
And to be clear, what happened, Paul Walker died, right? His two brothers came in and did all of the rest of the vocal performance that they kind of, obviously heavily edited. But they also did the physical performance with, motion tracking dots to be able to do it, which is, knowing that going in is like a beautiful thing. So every time I saw it, I wasn't like taken out. I was just, I felt something.
Right. I 100% agree. There was like only a couple shots where I was like, oh, that doesn't look good. If it did take me out, it was, I mean, it's, I honestly think I could point it out. It's when they're in the car in the building and they're like jumping from building, and it's him doing like, oh, that for some reason, those were the only shots. Cause I think they literally even reused the same shot twice. And that one is the only one that, like,
it's important to know that we don't really know how much of Paul Walker filmed either,
right?
You know what I mean? So there could be sequences or scenes where they may have gotten halfway through the scene and had to film the rest of it at a later date.
100%.
He filmed the first half and not the second half.
100%.
So it's just from a scheduling a movie standpoint.
Yeah.
And his brothers coming in, it wasn't just like they came in for a couple days and finished. No, they came in and were boots on the ground for this movie for the whole rest of the filming.
Yeah.
Not a small job, which, by the way, from a financial standpoint and from a like scheduling a movie standpoint, would have been 1,000% easier just to, like we talked about, kill off Brian.
Yeah.
And mid movie and do that. And big props to Universal for not doing that, for knowing that was like, that would be a gross thing to do.
I think they did a wonderful job for almost completely. And like we said earlier, it's like, okay, even if it doesn't 100% sell, you still know that is one of his brothers doing that performance. I think they did a great job of like writing around it, cutting around it, or editing for it. And I think they did a great job.
It's great. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, okay. So now kind of in a like summation of this era, coming out of 1 through 4, you were excited. You were pumped to get
Yes.
into it. You've hinted that not necessarily not excited, but nervous about
Yes.
the next 3 we were watching, which will be The Fate of the Furious, Hobbs and Shaw, and F9, The Fast Saga, which is the actual
Literally.
title of that movie. That's
I don't
not
know.
me
I
being
don't
dumb.
know which. I don't know which one's worse. F9 of the Fast Saga verse, or just Fast and Furious. Not the Fast and the
It's F9, The Fast Saga. Let's be clear. Like,
F9 of the Furious.
correct.
I don't know. I don't know which one's the worst name. Yes, you are correct. I am reserved. I'm a little nervous because again, like I know the reaction to these movies. I know some people stand by them, and I know some people that don't. And I know Hobbs and Shaw is kind of a departure in a lot of ways for a lot of things.
Big time.
And so like if there's one that I know that I'm pretty sure I'm not going to like, it's Hobbs and Shaw. I'm interested to see how I feel about 8 and 9. I mean, like I'm excited again because we talked about the talent earlier. I'm excited to see freaking Charlize in these movies. I think
Helen Mirren.
Helen freaking Mirren, Jonathan Cena.
Yep.
Like I love John Cena so much. So I'm very excited for him to be a part of this franchise.
I mean, just to hint at the talent they're getting, right? 10 has cast Brie Larson, Jason Momoa, and a couple other
I did
people.
not know Jason Momoa.
He is, yeah.
Oh my God, is he going to play freaking The Rock's brother or something?
We'll see.
There's no way he's not related to The Rock.
We'll see.
Can we? I mean, because literally Jonathan Cena is playing Dom's brother, right?
Maybe.
He's like evil twin.
He's evil. Long lost Toretto. No, anyway, okay.
His cybernetically enhanced twin.
Little nervous moving forward.
Yes.
But real quick, we kind of already talked about the principles of escalation, how to do them.
Yeah.
I want to clarify what I mean by that, right? These movies escalate the stakes and escalate the stunt work and stuff. But we're at the end of the era where it works every time. Moving forward, it's a bit of a case
Spoilers.
study. I'm not going to spoil things.
I'm just kidding.
Moving forward, it's a bit of a case study in how escalation can go too far, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But these movies, it works because they commit, which was my lesson last time about commitment to ideas, themes, characters, go. This commits to the principle of escalation. Each time it gets bigger, but your characters aren't like, yeah, Roman has the bit of a line about, you asked me to steal a vault from a police station. I did that. And then you wanted me to shoot the biggest airplane ever invented out of the sky. You know, he has that bit, but Roman is, again, our POV character into this weird side of things. So that's kind of just, to reiterate that again, is like committing to your thing. I don't care if the characters think it's ridiculous. It's like, no, man, I want them to buy in.
Right.
From a script level, from a performance level, these guys do, and it works. And I wish more people took that and went with that.
Yeah.
Every franchise or every attempted franchise starter, not working. Anyway,
Yeah.
do you have anything that you've taken away from them that we haven't already covered or worth saying?
No, I think you're very right. I think talking about like I mentioned earlier, it's like they are escalating it and escalating it. And right now, I think I'm still buying it. I'm still in it. I still like it a lot. I think we are nearing a point where I can suspend my disbelief. We're nearing that like zenith, like we're nearing the like uncanny valley of crazy action sequences where it's like, I mean, they're already like jumping
Cars in between skyscrapers.
but it's like it feels just plausible enough to where I can still buy in and enjoy it. So I'll be interested to, I mean, like jumping the cars out of the planes honestly isn't even that crazy.
Yeah, it's just drop a car, parachute, land.
You just need a parachute that's gonna handle it. Like that doesn't feel that crazy. Them landing perfectly on the street is the crazy part.
Hey, Roman didn't, so it's plausible.
He did later.
Well,
I like I said earlier, like we're bending and bending and bending, and I'm scared of when it breaks.
Yep.
And I don't know when that's gonna be. I don't know if that's going to be with 8, Hobbs and Shaw are 9, but I feel like it's coming soon.
Well, I'm deeply fascinated in where we'll go. But yeah, so this is that's our feelings on that. Got a little heavy there for a sec,
Yeah.
but I think it's it's something very meaningful to me, these movies, and that was a very formative time in my life when that happened, and it's important.
It should be meaningful to anybody who has any appreciation of these movies, any appreciation of these actors. If you didn't feel anything towards his passing, you have no heart, because it is incredibly,
it's tragic,
incredibly tragic, and it was handled really sincerely and really sweetly in a way that I thought worked so much better than I ever thought possible.
Agreed. Okay, recommendations. Do you have something up? You just gave me the little smile. I'm so excited to see what you have to recommend.
I have been listening to a band freaking stop for the past week. I don't even remember how the conversation started with my brother. Oh, it's because, so my previous recommendation was the band Black Midi, specifically the album Hellfire. And so I mentioned that to my brother, who's a really talented musician and has got a huge, wide-ranging taste in music. And so I mentioned I really like Black Midi. He's like, have you ever listened to Idols? And so I said, I've heard of Idols. I'm kind of vaguely aware of them, never actually dived in. And so he sent me, I was like, so he said, you should listen to Idols. I was like, okay, well, where should I start? And then he turned to his girlfriend. He's like, where should he start? And then they both were like, we'll just make you a playlist. So my brother made me a playlist of a bunch of other music too. And there were specifically a couple of Idol songs on there. And I didn't even listen to any of the other playlists. I listened to those 2 songs and he immediately was like, okay, so this is all I'm listening to now. I can't recommend specifically an album, because what I've been listening to is the Spotify playlist This Is Idols. That's kind of what I've been doing. And don't come for me. I don't even want to hear it. I don't even want to hear it. All you album purists, looking at you, Spencer.
I'm a bit of an album purist.
I believe. I love and appreciate seeing an album as a work of art from beginning to end. I still believe that and still love that. That being said, I do think there's room to listen to music in kind of a radio randomized format. And so I've been listening to the Spotify playlist. This is Idols. It's phenomenal. They are such a good band. They kick ass and take names. So if you like,
I've been checking it out as well. I enjoy it.
Yeah, if you like punk or rock or I don't know. I don't even know how to describe it. They're very good. I'm sure they probably fit into the post-punk genre. That being said, I don't know much about post-punk. So don't come for me. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear your freaking complaints. I am above you. I am better than you. Don't talk to me.
Yeah. Whoa.
I'm just kidding.
Aggressive.
So yeah, that I've been listening to that, and then the other thing, I got 2 or 3 chapters into The Hobbit. I've been listening. I mentioned audiobooks last week. I've been listening to The Hobbit on audiobook to and from work during the day. So I've read The Hobbit before. I love that book. I recommend it. It's not a hot take to say The Hobbit is good. So hot take, guys. The Hobbit's good, actually. So that's the other thing I've been listening. Oh well, shit. There's another movie that I'd recommend. I don't know if you're going to recommend it or not.
Is the one we saw together?
Is the one we saw together.
Okay. I was going to talk about it.
Go for it.
Okay, so a couple things for me. Still watching Better Call Saul. Getting better and better every episode.
I started Better Call Saul. I'm 2.5 episodes in.
Another horror movie that I heavily recommend, which is Barbarian.
Yeah.
That movie is so cool, and it will be a podcast episode at some point because I love it a lot. Scariest movie I have seen in a very long time. And then the thing that I think we'll talk about, right? Interesting thing happened this year with horror movies.
Yeah.
Ty West and Mia Goth teamed up to make X earlier in the year, and the sequel to that came out in September of 2022. The same year, right? A movie and its sequel came out in the same year. They cost $2 million between the two of them.
Is that true?
It is.
I didn't see the budget for Pearl.
It is $2 million. It's $1 million each, essentially.
Wild.
Right? So basically,
God.
it made 3.9. Pearl did the sequel, which is kind of the recommendation. But I watch both.
Yes.
They're both excellent.
Yes, they're both so good.
Mia Goth is this year's Oscar snub already.
Yes, there's no world where she gets nominated.
And she deserves to be nominated kind of for both. You know what I mean? Specifically Pearl, specifically for the last half of Pearl.
Right.
Go check out that movie. It is so good.
It is so gorgeous. It is so creepy.
You and I talked about it's crazy how much it looks like it's filmed on Technicolor.
Yes, literally.
Like it almost seamlessly, if not seamlessly. You know what I mean? So good.
It's gorgeous. It is so cool.
And
so
they're also X is kind of a slasher movie, full blown slasher movie.
It is a slasher movie.
Pearl isn't exactly.
Not
Pearl
really.
is like more of like an intimate character study with like
it's like a
horror.
It's like a
serial killer
like a
elements.
horror drama.
Yeah, it's so good. Like, and I think Pearl, which is a prequel to X, makes X better.
Yes,
it makes the things that happen in that movie better.
Yes, it's clear that Ty West had like some inkling of where he wanted to go with this world
because they were greenlit at the same time. They essentially filmed them back to back, roughly.
Oh, interesting.
He was writing X, or they were filming X, and he was writing Pearl with Mia Goth.
Yes,
by the way,
Mia Goth, which I think is so cool.
It was amazing. He went to A24 and was like, "Hey, can I make this other one?" And they said yes, and he went, "I did not think they would say yes."
Yes,
he made him, cashed it in. Awesome movies.
Yeah.
And a third one called Maxine was just greenlit.
Yeah, just announced.
Just announced. So they're going to film that hopefully soon. So it comes out soon. Very excited about that. I think that is going to be awesome. Yeah. So yeah, a bunch of stuff to check out.
Yeah, bunch of stuff, bunch of recommendations.
And obviously, without saying, the Fast and Furious movies.
Yes.
Check out the saga. Become part of the family.
Yeah.
Part of the family.
Get yourself a Corona.
Old
Shaney West Side here.
I was having a pretty good time with the Corona during the conversation we were having. Drop a little lime in that bad boy. It's not bad.
Go for it. But yeah, anyway, the next episode will be over, like I said, Fate of the Furious, Hobbs and Shaw, and wrapping up the Fast and Furious trilogy of podcast episodes with F9, the Fast Saga, and a little discussion about the future of this series. Anyway, check this stuff out or don't. I don't know. Live your life.